The most obvious change when I look in the mirror is I don't have white hair around the front of my face. Of course, you can't see the back of your own hair, can you?
Without a complicated arrangement of
exactly,
mirrors.
And I couldn't care less what it looks like in the back. That's for other people to worry about, frankly. But so I've had my hair dyed for the first time since, I think, the 70s.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Morning, caller.
So I'm ready, you're ready? Let's crack on.
Yes. Do you want to tell me about your week?
It's been a quite uneventful week, really. Sarah went back to the UK yesterday, so I've now got 100% of my computer time back, as she has, and power cuts galore. That's what's happening at the moment, so nothing much else around here. We're going out for a Dave's Dining Club on Friday. That's restarting for the winter.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to that, and I'll tell you about the other bits in my other sections.
Well, it's good news that yours is so slight. I've got masses to tell you in this first section. Yesterday was my transfer from the West Country back to London.
Uh-huh.
Let me tell you how it went. It was a lovely day. We've had loads of these lovely days where the temperature's really quite low, like 7. But the sky is blue and the sunshine is out. So the journey was fast, safe. I was here sooner than I thought. I'd got my office set up by 2:00 and I was making and receiving phone calls. But what loveliest thing that happened was, yesterday was Halloween. As I drove into the road, there's a funny, strange parking arrangement here where outside everybody's house, across their driveway is a white, one of those white stripes that you're not allowed to park on, except if you live in that house. So I've got to park across their driveway, but I can't park anywhere else in the street without being a resident or having a special sticker between 12 and 2. This is London for you. We're back in these ridiculous rules. But as I pulled the car up outside the house, the neighbours on one side, clearly on half term, were tricking out the front of their house for trick or treat last night. So there were pumpkins, there were spiders' webs, and I said to her out of the window, Are you next door? And she said, yes. Are you the lady that's coming for 6 months? Yes. There was a lovely little boy with her because it's half term, and I waved at him, which is not normal for me, to be honest. I don't really like children very much. And he waved back at me, and she explained to me that if you don't put out a pumpkin, nobody will ring your doorbell, which was bliss.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I tried to go indoors, but the lock didn't work. So straight away I had to go and call on her. And she came and helped me. And then she said, she and her son, Spencer, you've got a nephew called Spencer, haven't you?
I have indeed.
Yes. So she and Leanne and Spencer then said, would you like us to help you in with your stuff from the car?
Oh, that's nice.
I mean, it's heaven, considering I've put everything I own in the car, out of the car, in the car, and I thought I was going to have to take it out again in a week. I could have kissed them, quite frankly. They were so kind and un-London-like. Because, we like to ignore our neighbours here for fear of striking up an unwanted friendship.
It's so funny.
Yeah, so that was lovely. And so consequently, I didn't have to do all the hauling in. So I haven't hauled it all up and downstairs indoors yet, but I've got it in a organisable way. And so the last week I was in Yeovil in Somerset, which was a gift. It was a lovely little 2 up, 3 down, 2 up, 2 down house that they extended, as is this one actually. And it was warm, it was quiet. There was no clutter, even though she's got 2 little boys. They were in Cyprus for half term. There were 6 tiny fish to feed, which I audited on arrival and departure, and I'm pleased to say all accounted for. But still lots to tell you in this. leaving Somerset, had to go and say goodbye to Holistic Helen, who gave me a mani-pedi on Monday. And she was in Wincanton, which is half an hour away from Yeovil. So again, these lovely drives back through these blue skies, sunny day thing. And as soon as I came out from Helen after the manicure and the pedicure, I felt like a changed woman. It may have been because I'd had 2 paracetamol, but Helen is, as is hinted at in the name, just a healing person to be with. And then Tuesday, the next day, I had to go do the same thing, back to Wincanton for last haircut, which was the day I was supposed to go metallic silver all over, you'll remember.
Yeah.
And I thought I would end up with sort of white hair like Helen Mirren or Judi Dench, but it seems to be more brown, which wasn't my intention. It's not a bad colour, but it looks like I'm trying to make myself younger. And if anything, I was trying to make myself look older, which is rather strange in a way. But Anita, who's my hairdresser, she and I have agreed that now I've started, it's a slippery slope and I'll probably be white as Santa by Christmas and maybe pink by next spring. She showed me a metallic silvery pink, which would be nice.
Oh, yes.
I know.
So do they have to strip some colour out of your hair to make you go white and silver then?
Well, I am quite white already around the face and have been since I was 21. So actually white doesn't normally take colour, but it's taken colour rather well. So the most obvious change when I look in the mirror is I don't have white hair around the front of my face. Of course, you can't see the back of your own hair, can you?
No. Without a complicated arrangement of
exactly,
mirrors.
And I couldn't care less what it looks like in the back. That's for other people to worry about, frankly. But so I've had my hair dyed for the first time since, I think, the 70s, to be honest, when we used to have highlights and lowlights and all sorts of nonsense and perms and things. Have you ever had a perm?
Oh, yes, I had perm.
Oh, God, I didn't look
never
at perm. And we had to do that brushing so that you look like Farrah Fawcett. I mean, some hope, honestly.
Oh, that was after putting beer in your hair as well.
Oh, and talking about looking like Farrah Fawcett, last night I did something which, why I haven't done this before in my life, I do not know. I overnighted in my new thermal underwear.
Overnighted?
Oh my God, Nicola, I have never been so toasty warm, so unglamorous, but so toasty warm. I mean, really, you can't look glamorous. I look like a cross between a blimp and the Michelin Man. Not good. It's not a good look, but so warm. I don't know. I haven't done it before.
Well, I can't. I'm still struggling. I mean, Sarah's going to be.
I mean, you'll never need them out there, will you?
No, exactly. But well, we would have done that first winter, I'll tell you. Are the stairs okay? Because you were worried about the stairs.
Yeah, well, they're better than I feared. They are almost, I don't know if you know this, but when you drive on roads, I don't know about other places in the world, but there's a sign that denotes how steep the hill is. Yeah. And it says 1 in 7 or 1 in 1. 1 in 1 means sort of vertically straight up. Yeah. And these are 1 in 2. They go straight up through the middle of the house. You know those little old houses that you got the top of the stairs in the middle and there's a room on the left and a room on the right? Yeah.
Sarah's house in Worthing was like that.
Yeah, well, it was like that. But the stairs are almost vertical. They do have, I wouldn't call them banisters. They have 2 dado rails that poke out on both sides. Now, because of my knees are a bit dodgy, as you know, going up and down them, you need to find as few excuses for that as possible. Yeah. I'm not worried about falling up or down them, but when I took up the things last night that I wanted to have upstairs with me, I have to get on the step and have all of the things in the steps in front of me and then inch them up a step or 2 and then creep up behind them, which is a little bit geriatric, but better than, there's no suggestion of ever running up and down these stairs, put it like that. No. But when I came down this morning, I mustn't carry anything down. And the tread is about half the size of my foot. So I have to come down sideways, foot over foot, over foot. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to fall down them. I'm slightly less worried about them than I was.
Yeah, good.
But let me carry on if I may. So today is the 1st of November, which is an opportunity, if we want, to join NaNoWriMo.
I have joined NaNoWriMo.
Have you? Well done. I've never joined it before, but I think I might join in the spirit, although I only woke up to it 48 hours ago, and I certainly can't do it today because I've set myself up with the day from, well, I won't say hell, but, a long, difficult one. And then I've got 4 days off. I might be able to catch up tomorrow. I think what I'll do is, I'm not a joiner, so I haven't joined it, and I've never joined it, but I have often written, 1,667 words a day every day in November, and I think I might do it this year as well. Yeah. And finally, in this section, caller, I had another session with the Crystal Lady on Monday.
Oh,
right. My client that introduced me to her forwards my newsletter to her, which isn't ideal, to be honest. I don't know why, but anyway, it's not. If she wanted to read my newsletter, she should be signed up. But in the last 2 weeks, I've spoken about her twice. And so we've had an email correspondence. And then she offered me a session on Monday at 5, which I did. And she's prescribed some vile Chinese tea, which the Amazon should deliver today. I don't like tea of any description. Have you ever had that tea they give you when you go to the acupuncturist?
I don't know. I quite like teas of any kind.
Oh, do you? That's good for you.
I don't like fruity ones or licorice ones, but anything...
I was just going to say, actually, the one they prescribe you when you go to the acupuncturist, you boil up all of these herbs, and if anything, it tastes a little bit like licorice, and I don't mind that one, to be honest. Typically, of course, we're on opposite sides. She told me to look out for an insight, which I'll tell you about in a minute, and that my big event that she said would come at the end of May 2019 is now advanced to the 21st of December 2018.
Oh, you've got a definite date.
I have. I think it's going to be sooner than that, actually. But that's enough for this section for you, I think. Paula, tell me what's fueled your fire.
Well, interestingly enough, the top of my list is the house is tidy and clean, and I'm on top of all chores. And when I look at my momentum screen today on Chrome, it says, if you have everything under control, you're not moving fast enough.
Oh, how funny, because actually I was about to say, I love that feeling.
Yeah. Well, I only feel that feeling because Sarah always goes into nesting mode when she leaves a place. She likes to leave somewhere better than she found it.
So it's not you that's on top of all the chores, tidy and clean, then it's Sarah's departing gift to you.
Exactly, yes. And it's everything is very, very,
well,
very...
in that case, the momentum doesn't apply to you. Well, you didn't do it, did you? Somebody else did it for you as a present. No. So.
But I'm always very willing to take credit.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I was going to say, you're probably just as chaotic as normal, in which case you are moving fast enough.
No, I'm not. I've been slacking through the summer. But we had a writing sprint day. Was it the day before yesterday? Yes, it was. And so three or four of the ladies came round, and we did 3 45-minute sprints. But I cheated a bit because I'd already written 3,000 words over the weekend. So.
Yes, you told me that in a message.
Yeah, I spent the first sprint bit zapping tolerations. So I went through a whole pile of papers and sorted those into piles and got rid of all the stuff that was rubbish.
Oh, so you were all at your respective homes? You weren't in some place together?
No, they were at my home.
Oh, they were at your house? Okay.
Yeah. And Sarah was here as well.
So you weren't writing, you were tidying?
I was tidying my writing stuff because what happens is I get a big pile of papers when they've critiqued my work. So they print it off, they make their notes, and then they give it to you at the end of the session.
Print it off?
A pile of these things.
Have you people not heard about the planet suffering?
Well, yes, we have, but we can't address everything, can we?
They can't do it digitally. They can't read digitally.
No, they can't. They can't even use Google Documents, this lot. They can only use Word. So
yeah, well, I'm not going to criticise them for that. I don't really like Google Docs very much, as you know. I moan about it every time you make me use it.
Well, I don't really like anything else apart from Google Docs, so there you go. So I have to save my work in progress as a PDF, which I then send them. And if they want to make notes on it, then I have to send a Word document, and then they have to make notes on it. Then they have to print it out because I can't read their notes if they send it back to me. So if you sent me a PDF, I could make notes on it because I'm 100% digital and I have that power from Adobe. Well, very good. Anyway, the last bit of my the first session, I'd finished my paper shuffling, so I went down to Katerina's and zapped some writerly tolerations. I got myself some coloured files, some pens, and a stapler, which is giving me inordinate pleasure. I can't tell you. And there I am trying to get rid of all of those, zapping tolerations. Now, did you see the thing this morning about staplers? Have you got yours to hand? Is it near you? Yes, it is, yes. Open it up. You can store staples in the bottom bit. What do you mean? In the bottom bit, there's the capacity to store staples, apparently. I've just learnt it this morning on Facebook. No. Are you sure it might be either side? I'll copy you in on the post. Everybody goes, oh, yes, I've looked at it. It might not be the top side. It might be the bottom side. If you take that rubbery bit off, can you store staples in the bottom? So you must be dreaming that I've bought one of those big office staplers. I've bought a little red one. That does. You mean a tiny little thing that puts in a tiny little, tiny, yeah. Yes, no, it won't be in there, and you won't need to store them in there. You've got a little box of them, have you? So I feel very much on top of everything. I'm actually ahead of myself on NaNoWriMo already because I thought it started yesterday, and I wrote 1,600 words yesterday. Oh, very good. I wish I had done that, yes. On top of my 3,000 words at the weekend. So I'm actually 4,600 words in on NaNoWriMo. Okay, so you're going to do the ones you did last week and call that November, are you? Yeah, well, I am, because I want to have a little... It's a bit like, most unlike me, I'm trying to get a bank of things stored up, which is what I'm trying to do in my real life as well, which is something I've never done before in my life. Trying to get ahead of yourself. Exactly.
Well, I'm always ahead of myself. And I say it's torture, Nicola.
What do you
Well,
mean?
it's the antithesis of living in the moment, isn't it? So if I'm on top of everything today, I think, well, I wonder what I can do from tomorrow so that when tomorrow comes, I can rest. Whereas actually I could just rest this afternoon.
Yes, I know.
It's madness.
You get a balance, haven't you, between being ahead of yourself and being so far ahead of yourself that you're torturing yourself.
Yes, I don't think I'm that second one, but my brother and I both always used to like to be in the office very, very early in the morning so that you could get your shit together before anybody came and asked for anything.
Well, I was up at 7 this morning because the clocks went back here and I'm waking up earlier, so I'm feeling very on top of everything.
I've been up early a few times, not I think because of the clocks, but just sort of a general excitement about life, actually.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. Very nice. Oh, I'm really pleased. Good. Okay, so what's our focus? Oh, no, what's fueled your fire?
Yes, quite right, caller. Well, there's something that I teach my clients and we see working in all groups, and it's a sort of Judith Morgan standard, which is do the work, do all of the work, and step away from the computer to allow the big universe space to manifest whatever it is you're after. And on Tuesday morning, when I was in the hairdressers for 2.5 hours because I was having it dyed, normally I'm in the hairdressers for 20 minutes, and I don't even need it drying because I don't have very much hair, and the heat of my own head dries my hair. But I was in there for 2.5 hours, and I thought, before I went, I'll take my iPad. No, I won't. I'll just sit in the chair and relax, try and sort of meditate a bit. And but it's quite unusual for me not to have an efficient 20 minutes to be in there. Well, I can't remember the last time I spent 2.5 hours in the hairdressers, to be honest. But while I was in there, not just one, but 2 leads for new clients from my SEO popped in. Oh. And the first one I thought, oh, that's nice. And the second one, when the second one came, I went, oh my God. So like in it between 11 and, well, about an hour and a half in the middle, 2 leads to complete strangers, both women-led London-based businesses, interestingly, because my number 1 search term is Business Coach London. And if anybody goes and searches that, they end up with me. And one of them is a really funky music DJ studio thing in the East End. And the other is a woman who teaches French to tiny tots not very far away from where I'm living now. And I've had clients, I think she's about my 4th client who teaches French in one way or another. So that's quite interesting. But given what I've discovered recently about, the cold traffic that comes in that way, I'm prepped, and I'm doing one this week, induction on Friday, and one next week sometimes. Now, Crystal Annie said to look out for an insight, and the insight that I got from that was, don't hold on so tight, Judith. Go to the hairdressers, let the leads drop in.
Yes, I always find things happen when I go to the hairdresser.
I do. Step away from the computer, and if you sit at your desk with your fists clenched, waiting for the results of your mail out or whatever it is, it doesn't happen.
No, I love to do mail outs and then go out.
Yes, you've got to go out. You've got to step away from the machine and give the space for it to come in.
Yeah. Well, the first time I ever mailed out for the Money Gym, when I attracted 26 clients in one day. Giving away the first 4 places or 5 places, I think it was. I literally I wrote the email, pressed send, and went to pick the kids up from school, and came back to 26 new clients.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? I mean, we could do that in those days, 2002-ish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We could do that in those days. I don't think that's as easy now, but nobody was in competition with you. Nobody offered anything like that. It was quite rare.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd spent a year, or if not 2, building up my reputation by doing
before you offered them anything,
newsletters and blog posts. Like that.
Was that because you were opening the Acacia and didn't have anything of a coaching nature to offer, or
well, I had my personal wealth coaching, which was under my own name.
Yes.
So I had one program that was that was it basically. Yeah. But I spent the sort of 2 years previously. But when I had the brainwave that I could launch the Money Gym, call it something different, that said what it did on the tin, and have people to stay at the hotel for workshops, that was what made the difference. I turned it from I
think that was a Chris Barrow epiphany, wasn't it? You were working with him then.
Well, I think it was my accountant actually. He said,
"Oh right, okay.
Can't you think of a way to move really profitable money from this business
from one to the other?" Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
workshops. That's how we do it. Yeah. So, what are we going to focus on this week?
Yeah, well, we've got a guest today, Paula Gardner, a woman that you and I have both known together and separately for a very long time. You all the way back to the aforementioned Acacia, actually, as you explain in your introduction, because I make you rather bossily introduce Paula because you've known her such a long time. And me, when I read her books, and then I got into a supper club with her when I lived in Canary Wharf, and it was her, me, and Heather Waring, who was the lady who taught us how to pee in the wilderness quite recently.
Oh, wow.
Remember? Yeah.
Really?
The three of us used to go out to dinner in Canary Wharf, in Carluccio's and places like that for quite a long time, once a month for more than a year, I think. And in those days, as she explains in this interview, PR was her thing. But then she went on a date with a chap who almost dared her to pursue her dream, which she realised going all the way back to school had been psychology. And now she combines the two. So why don't we listen to Paula tell her story, shall we?
Hello. Hello there.
Hello. Nicola, why don't you interview Paula, because you know her?
Okay. Welcome to the podcast, Paula Gardner, who's someone who I go back a long, long way with, because we first made contact when I had that hotel in Worthing called the Acacia, and you had a program, do your own PR, didn't you?
Yes.
And I came up with a brilliant idea, which was not so much that I would do my own PR, but that you'd come and stay at the hotel occasion and you'd do my PR for me.
Yeah, that was rather clever, wasn't it?
Why doesn't that surprise me?
It's a familiar business proposition that I put out for people. So, Paula, I mean, a lot has happened to you since then, hasn't it? So tell us a bit about you, where you come from, give us your website address, and tell us what you're up to now, and then we can kick into your topic of the day.
Well, as you know, I was in PR. I was in PR for many, many years. Started off in music PR, working with people like Sonia and George Michael and Sunita. Then moved into business PR and then PR coaching, which I did for over 10 years. Recently, about 3 years ago, I went back to uni to do a master's in business psychology.
Wow.
So I am now a business psychologist.
Wow.
And I combine my past life, my PR life, with my business psychology learning. So my two main areas are visibility, which ties in with the PR, but also ethical leadership, which is obviously very prominent at the moment.
Yes. Or not so.
Oh, not, yes.
And Paula, is the business called Scarlet, something to do with Scarlet? Tell us your URL.
Yes, it's called Scarlet Thinking. So their website is scarletthinking.com.
Okay, and Scarlet got 2 T's or 1?
Scarlet has 1 T.
And then there's another one for thinking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, scarletthinking.com. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, now you're going to be our most academic, bringing us our most academic topic, I think, chaos theory, isn't it right?
Oh, come on then, bring it on, chaos theory.
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay, so it's derived from, you know, the universe and astronomy and so on, but chaos theory very much applies to our own lives and business. So the theories came up with, a guy called Jim Bright came up with a theory, and there's 2 parts to the theory, and I think both of them are really cool and has got a lot to teach us about running our businesses. So the first part is basically like something that is circling the earth. Every tiny little deviation from our route can actually long term take us far away from where we originally thought we would be. So that's almost every decision that we make about our business or day to day, you know, whether to have the website black and white or, you know, green and flashing stripes, or whether to go to one networking group one day rather than another. They all sort of take us in a course that may be different to the one that we originally thought we'd be on.
Mm.
And the second part of it is that even if we manage to stick quite, you know, carefully and precisely to the plan that we have, that actually we don't have control of it at all. There are things which can come and strike us and send us veering off in different directions at any moment. So these can be good things, like, you know, your dream client comes along and you can pay off your mortgage, or they can be bad things like bereavement or illness, and we actually have no, you know, idea what they are and where they're coming from. And one reason why I'm particularly drawn to chaos theory is because I think as business owners, it takes a lot of pressure off us.
Mm.
So when you read any business website that tackles business in the traditional way. It's all about get the plan, get strategy, have your goal. I'm not saying those are bad things. I think it's good to know where you want to go, but sticking rigidly to them actually stops you from seeing all the other opportunities that are out there.
I came across something just recently in the Michael Neal book I'm working through, where they talk about 50. You bring the magic. You are the 1%, and it was about how any given situation in the business has only ever got a 50-50 chance of succeeding, and it's you that brings the 1% that tips it over one way or another. And usually, you're bringing the 1% that tips it into success, because if you weren't there, it wouldn't succeed. It would just be the random 50-50 thing. And I love that concept, because it was very much what you were just saying. And, I'm also minded of an aeroplane. They know where they're going to land, but they have to constantly correct course along the way. And they're never exactly on the right track, exactly as planned, in a straight line, but they're adjusting to weather conditions and storms and fuel, fuel amounts that they've got. And perhaps the final thought that sprung to mind when you were talking there was the whole Steve Jobs. You can only connect the dots in retrospect. And when you're leaping from stepping stone to stepping stone, you have to trust that there's going to be another one there in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. So true.
I was working with a client yesterday who'd been under the weather for most of the last month since our last call. And yet she was able to tell me about 3 things that had turned up in her life, which I don't think she would have either noticed and probably wouldn't have turned up if she hadn't been poorly. One of them was a collaborative working space in her local library. One was a meetup group for sale that had 1,100 people on it that she could acquire for $68. And one was something else. Some CDs that were really helping her. And I said, both of us had read a book called The Surrender Experiment, which we both agreed to read again. And I said, look, you haven't done anything in the last month, but it's gone rather well. I'm wondering whether we shouldn't do another month like that, just to see whether, getting out of your own way and not being quite so, well, we both agreed we don't control anything. And it still works just as well when we're not trying to control it.
Yeah.
I like this chaos theory thing very much. I watched the video that you sent in advance. I like the way the man talk. I totally get that. I'm a control freak, and I recognize I control nothing. And I understand nothing. And, the older I get, the less I know. And the more I come to trust, as Yvonne always says in the cash flow game, that the big U's got my back. I don't need, I'm teaching my clients that they've got to work out what they want and throw the dice accordingly. And she goes, I don't do that. I just drop them because I know the big U's got my back. And, we can choose either on any day or for the rest of our lives. And it doesn't really matter.
Paula, you said a very important thing there, which is it takes a lot of the pressure off, because a lot of people come to me for coaching because they want me to tell them the right way to do things. Yeah. And I can tell them the best way to do things right now, but it wouldn't be the best way a year ago or 3 years ago, and it probably won't be the best way 2 years ahead. But people are desperate for certainty, aren't they? And they're terrified of doing things wrong.
Yeah. Chaos theory in one way is quite nihilistic, but in another way, it's very empowering. And the whole thing about making decisions is you can only make the decision with the best knowledge that you have right at this very moment.
Yeah. I like the idea about taking the pressure off. And yet a part of me, because I think that gives you so much permission, and yet a part of me thinks that some people would never get anything done if they didn't have a small awareness that there's a little bit of pressure in some areas, sort of financial and deadline-y.
Well, I create deadlines because I know that's the only way I'm ever going to get things done. and it drives Judith mad because she loves to plan in advance. So, when we're doing a project like this one, she does all the planning because it just simply wouldn't happen if it was down to me. But I'm not, but then I'll wake up and have a spontaneous thought and start doing something, and it'll work just, as well in its own way. Because
I agree. I agree with that. And actually, the bits that you plan on the other side of something like this, they segue with my advanced planning beautifully. And so the end product has surprised us both by how great it's been.
Yes, we both brought our own 1%, so we brought 2%.
Yes. Yeah. And then there's the client, you see, the interviewee, the guest, the Paula factor in this.
Yes. Paula's bringing her own magic today.
Yeah, she is. Say more, Paula. Encourage us even more. Not that Nicola and I need it, but perhaps the listener does.
Well, it actually fits really well with another theory, which I like. I love the name of it, called Happenstance Theory.
Yeah.
And Happenstance Theory is once you sort of get over the idea that, there is a set goal and you can't deviate from that, and you allow yourself to be more open. Happenstance Theory basically says that the more open you are to new experiences, new people, new books, new ideas, then basically the more serendipity will come your way, the more good luck will come your way.
Lovely.
Yeah, we're liking this. So whole synchronicity is a lovely word anyway.
Yeah.
But you have to be, you have to do it proactively. So proactively seek out.
Does that mean all you can from where you are with what you have, or is it more laid back than that?
I think it's basically deciding that you're going to visit new places, not just because you like to visit them, but because you are opening yourself to new experiences.
Yes.
Deciding you'll have conversations with different people in real life or on social media.
Yes.
I
am a person of routine. I like routines, but when I'm out and about, I do things. I decide to go another way at the traffic light, and I walk around the fountain in Canary Wharf the opposite way, because routine is the enemy of happenstance, isn't it?
Yeah. Your brain closes down. Yeah.
And I think one of the best results my clients get is by getting out of the house, because then you trip across other people and they make happenstance happen.
Yeah. And you never know what you're going to pick up. A newspaper or a magazine that triggers off an idea. Yeah. You hear a conversation in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
So, even if you're working at home, on the computer, I should say, taking an active coffee shop or a co-working space, just open things up for you much more.
I think coming back to the podcast, because we were talking earlier with one of our guests about podcasts, one of the things that really has amazed me about doing an interview podcast, particularly because I did 130 odd episodes of Business Success Factory back in the day, and I'm still using that material. But the thing it did was it opened doors very effortlessly to people who could happenstance me, if you like. And I built relationships there that are still ongoing now. And you never know who people know, do you? We do a podcast for a writers group here, and I was interviewing a poet yesterday. Well, not just me, but two of us were interviewing a poet. And it turns out that his wife is very highly connected in the business world in Manchester. And you just never know, if you get on with someone and get to know them, you just never know who their relatives are, who their cousins are, who their best friend at school was. And that's, again, it's a butterfly effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's also when my clients say to me, "You'll never guess what." Yeah. Because actually people are gobsmacked by the things that show up in their lives, quote unquote, surprisingly. But it's usually from, I'm not sure what the word is, implementing what you're talking about, Paula.
Yeah.
Whether chaos or happenstance. Yeah. We've done that thing you described at the beginning. Every tiny decision changes everything.
Yeah. Can I tell you my own story?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, so I suppose this is why chaos theory resonates with me so much. So, I mean, as you both know, I've been in PR for a long time, and that's basically been my world: PR, marketing, writing. That's what I know. And for a while, I had been sort of slightly disillusioned with it, because it can be quite superficial, but just not sure where to go with it. And then one day I was out on a date, completely unrelated to PR. This is my personal life, and I met a guy who was at the time, well, he is still 7 years older than me, and he was basically in his 50s, retraining to be a barrister, and he had previously been a psychologist. And we were chatting, and he was telling me about, well, it's 7 years to study, but that gives me 10 years to do what I want, that I'm at the job that I know I'm going to love. And, this is my reward for all the hard work in my life, da, da, da. And it sparked off a memory that I had about wanting to do psychology as a teenager. And then my careers teacher, lovely example of careers advice, had told me that if you go into psychology, the only job you will get is in a prison or a mental hospital.
Oh, nice.
I know. And I'd gone home and told my parents this, and they were like, oh, no, you're not doing that. So I ended up doing English Lit, which got me on a whole different course. So speaking to him, it sparked off my interest in psychology again. And I told him this, this story about my careers advisor and so on. And he just looked at me in that way that men sometimes have and said, well, why don't you do it? I said, well, single mother, got a mortgage, da 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 da. But the way that he said it and what he said, it stuck with me. And I went home and just Googled my local university to see if they did business psychology or occupational, and they did. And I spoke to the guy who ran the course, and because usually you need a psychology first degree, and he was saying, oh, we do a business experience, that'd be fine. There's a place for you if you want it. And I thought, oh, shall I, shan't I? And then a couple of days later, he sent an email saying, look, there's a 50% funding you can get from the EU. And it was almost as though one part was everything was pointing to the fact that I should be doing this. But a week before, it hadn't even been in my head.
No, so if you hadn't even gone on that date.
Yeah. And that has changed my life monumentally.
And for the better, and you're doing what you've always wanted to do.
Yeah. But not just that, the confidence that I've got from going back to university has been amazing. Yeah. And I have this sense of contentment now, which I didn't have before.
Oh, lovely. That was one of the dots that Steve Jobs talked about, wasn't it? A big dot right on that date.
Yeah. But I never knew it was coming. You just don't, do you?
No, you'll never guess what.
You have to be open to the possibility, yeah.
Yeah. And also the word that Paula used that I wrote down somewhere here was about newness. You've got to keep, the more open you are to doing new things, meeting new people, thinking new thoughts, exploring new areas, the more serendipity comes along. And actually, I don't think any of the three of us or any of our majority of our listeners are tired of new things. New's exciting, isn't it? It's interesting.
Yes. And even though I'm living in the teeny tiniest village in Greece, which you'd think would be a backwater and I would never meet any new people, I have never met so many new people in my whole life. There's thousands of people coming here for 2 weeks at a time, 4 weeks at a time.
I do think people are the catalysts of all of this. You're meeting new people. Paula went on a date. I do think people are these little tiny satellites in this orbit that you talked about at the beginning. I do think people bring change into our lives somehow.
Good point.
Can I just pick up here as well? The thing I'm loving about this is it's science-based, chaos theory, physics, quantum physics, etc. Yeah. It's psychology-based, which is fascinating, and we're learning more and more about it all the time. Yeah. But both of those, I'm going to get woo-woo again, Judith. Both of those are now everything we learn is backing up the whole thing about the whole secret and law of attraction and stuff, which used to annoy me so much because it was based on, just thinking about what you wanted and not taking the action, so that the law of attraction, the biggest word is action. But now we're getting all this quantum physics stuff that's backing it up, and we're getting all the psychology science that's backing up that people through the years who've really succeeded and achieved creatively or whatever, they used tools that are now proven by MRI scans and things to make a huge difference.
And my version of that, which I love equally, is that Louise Hay, who put every kind of woo-woo flaky nut job on her stage and published them for decades, and I loved all of it and lapped it up and hoovered it up, died relatively recently, but her organisation goes on, and all they do now is put scientists on their stage to prove that what she always offered us was right.
Yes.
And we had to take it on trust, people like me, and I didn't have any problem with that, and I wouldn't try and justify it to people like you, Nicola, who needed the logical backup. But now I don't need to, because the scientists are coming on and agreeing with us woo-woos. So it's a sort of internal knowing, which now is teaming up in partnership with the scientific prover knowing people.
The most amazing synchronicity thing has just occurred to me, because the thing that really got me onto this stuff was Professor Brian Cox, who, of course, used to be a keyboard player for D-Ream in the same time when you were doing PR. Look, Paul.
Wow, yeah.
I've seen Brian Cox sitting in the Sainsbury's car park in his silver estate car while his wife and children are inside doing the shopping. He's just an ordinary bloke like the rest of us, Nicola.
I know, but he was the one who really turned me on to all the...
But he did what Paula's talking about. He was riveted by physics, and so he followed his passion.
Mm.
And they do say science and music, or maths and music, is very closely aligned. And
same part of the brain, that's why maths and music is my thing as well.
Yeah. Wow. So what next for you then, Paula?
What next? I'm launching a leadership course on ethical leadership, which will be bringing in some of the bits and pieces that I've talked about today. About holding your course lightly and not being too sort of focused on the end goal all the time, because you're missing out on all the bits that come in between and all the other opportunities.
Yeah.
I saw a really nice quote about leadership yesterday. It said, the point of leadership is to create more leaders, not more followers.
True. Yes, you want to empower others.
Quite. Inspire and empower. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I've been on a bit of a mission about that this week, because people doing Facebook Lives in an authentic way has been very much the topic of my obsession this week. And I think people who are ethical, I think we need ethical leaders, and we need ethical leaders who go about things in ways that you can tell that they're ethical, rather than, what's the word I'm looking for? Showbiz, razzmatazz. I want people who you can just listen to and look at and know that they're real.
And I think that must be a reaction to the fact that there's so much of the other around us in politics and show business, actually. That the true people, that the authentic people speak to us more, the more that the rest of the world chooses us off.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that, Paula. So where can people go to find you? It's
scarletthinking.com.
I'll put it all in the notes, don't worry.
Lovely.
And how lovely to connect with you again and find out what you're up to.
Yeah. If there's a word that's even better than chaos, it's happenstance. What a great word.
I know, I just love saying it.
Yes.
Had to get it in there somewhere.
It's quite an old word. We'll have to do an etymology on it.
Well, go and look it up. Yes, we will. Thank you for being here, Paula. You're a star.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. All right, bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
I've always found PR really fascinating, ever since I knew the original inspiration for Ab Fab. My friend used to work for the woman who Patsy and Adina were based on.
And I was going to tell you that one of my earliest accounting clients, where I went for 2 days a week and met Penny, the woman that came to be my assistant, was also in PR. And I used to think they just organised, cocktail parties, really. I didn't really get PR in those days.
But Paula was always very good at it. She got me some great PR for the hotel, and I think we swapped coaching for PR services, and then she wrote that Do Your Own PR book and did very well from that. So
yeah, she did. And she wrote a blog piece for my book promotion, and she describes how she started in PR, and she's still in it, but she combines it with psychology now.
Yeah. Well, I think to be a good PR person, you have to know the psychology of journalists, don't you?
Well, possibly, yes. But do you remember Lucy Stores? Do you remember Lucy Stores? Lucy Stores had a shop somewhere in the Lakes or Yorkshire or something, and then went to live in Italy. Well, she got Paula's book and followed Paula's instructions to the letter, and it totally worked.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had some good results with PR over the years. I remember once I managed to get 1,000 bottles of Baby Sham and 500 vintage glasses for free from the PR company who looked after Baby Sham.
God knows what you did with it. Surely you didn't drink it, did you?
It was for a launch party for a 1950s.
Oh, I see what you mean, yes.
I'd been overseeing the launch of a 1950s cafe, and I thought Baby Sham would be fab.
I see what you mean. You mean you got that in a work capacity, you didn't? I thought Nicola Cairncross has got 500 bottles of baby sham at home. What's she going to do with that?
Well, you did have quite a few left over, I have to say.
It's not everybody's cup of tea, is it?
No, but it's all right with a slug of brandy in it.
It's quite a fun thing in terms of its retroness, especially if you get the glasses. But actually, when you put it in your mouth, you kind of regret it.
Well, it's a bit like sweeter Prosecco.
Yeah, it is. It's like and actually, when I was a child, when I would go to people's houses, that's what they would try and get me to drink, as a teenager in the early 60s. No, I wasn't a teenager.
Probably I got 1,000 bottles.
Yes, when they were, no, quite.
Couldn't give it away, except.
But in those days when we thought that saucer was the way to drink, champagne-esque type of things. And then we went to this flute, and sometimes now they go back to, the jury is still out on the best way to drink champagne, interesting.
It is, but Marie Antoinette's boobs.
Yes. And speaking of boobs, did you see the man that invented one of those things that babies drink milk out of? I forget what you call that. He made a boob-shaped one this week, properly, because it spreads out in a way that is more digestible for the baby to take.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
There we go.
Love an inventor.
Things you never knew, you thought you'd never hear on.
No, quite boobs. Yeah.
Podcast.
Most of our listeners are women, so that's all right. Now, tell me your word of the week.
Autonomous.
Oh, nice.
Because although Sarah is absolutely fabulous at doing little jobs, that's her way of showing love, is to do little jobs, and she finds it meditative to wash up and things like that, and put the washing in and hang the washing out and stuff like that. It's all back under my control is probably a loose. No,
having it all under your control means you've got to do it all as well, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but there's not a lot to do here. God, one person living alone, it's not exactly arduous, is it?
No, I agree. No, it isn't. No,
especially when you have a cleaner. But,
especially if you think of it as self-care, I think.
Yes, exactly. So, yes, I'm autonomous again when it comes to putting the washing in and hanging it out again.
Yes, I'm here. I'm waiting for you to say, and what is your word of the week, Judith?
And what is your word of the week?
Mine is budget, because on Monday in the UK it was the budget. And when I was an accountant, I absolutely used to love it. It used to always be on a Tuesday. Now it's on any old day, which I don't really get. I also, in those days, we're going back a couple of decades now, I used to have a bit of a thing for Chancellors of the Exchequer, but I notice I'm over that now too.
Yeah.
But still, I'm going to make a small political point with not a capital P here. There was money in the budget for fixing potholes, but none for my waspy pensioners. I want to say here that pensioner is such an unsexy word, and it feels like a generation away even for me. But listen very carefully. I shall say this only once. What the word pensioner actually means is a woman just like me.
Sorry, were you trying to get at something there?
No, I'm trying to say we all think of pensioners as something remote and far away and old, but actually a pensioner is a woman just like me. And if people can't feel sympathy for a woman just like me who's been robbed of £48,000, it's because they're thinking of pensioners as something that none of us are yet.
Yeah. I've got a good story on this about this age perception thing's going on. There was a lot of talk among people who I grew up with this week about a big party for a chap called Ian Richards, who was one of my loves before.
I remember. Did he have a moustache-like thing?
Shannon.
Yes,
no,
yes.
No, it's not the same one, though.
Okay.
His name was Ian, though, Ian Gurr.
Okay.
I remember that.
Well, I've got a good memory.
Another Ian, and Kim and I used to go out with two Ians, and I suddenly realised that must mean it was his 60th birthday.
Yeah.
And I just, for some reason, you always imagine ex-boyfriends as being exactly the same as when you...
Absolutely right, yes.
Yeah, that's a twisted thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it is a weird. That's the point. That's the point I was trying to make, which is age. We think we're sort of stuck at somewhere between 16 and 32 in our heads, but actually, we're creeping on up there. And that doesn't mean I think we're short of time. Quite the opposite. I think I've got 40 years. But a pensioner isn't your mum or your gran. It's Judith.
And your ex-boyfriend.
Yes,
which is
Judith
weird.
and Ian. Yes, absolutely. And we're still vital and going to parties, but it is. I think if you can humanise a word like pensioner, it's more meaningful.
Yeah. So I had to text Kim and tell her that meant her Ian was even older, and she said, "Well, yes, that's very true, but he did look good when I saw him in Waitrose last week."
Well, there you go. And I don't think I've told you that in the summer I had dinner with the man that I was with when we first met. Don't say his name out loud, please. And do you remember I discovered that he was double-crossing me in the year of my 50th birthday? And I forgave him and called him, and we went out to dinner. And as we're driving to this posh restaurant in the country that was owned by Chris Evans, I looked in the back of his black Range Rover, and there was a baby seat. And I went, oh my God, there's a baby seat in the back of your car. And age 62, he had just become a father.
Good grief.
I know.
Well, that's a whole other thing.
And when he takes the baby to Gymboree, they call him Grandad. Which you didn't have to tell me. I thought that was the funniest thing. How sweet.
Brilliant. That's so funny.
Yeah, it is funny, I know.
Oh my God. So project updates then.
So apart from today, which as I've already described as busy, I've got a week off to get settled back into London, and I've got those 2 potential new clients to induct. And as I've said, I'm not doing much, basically, is the answer to this. Well, I suppose that gives me some time to get into NaNoWriMo, and I could unpack now, which I wasn't able to do. I haven't been able to do for the last 6 months. I think that's my project, is to get settled in my new home, because I'm going to be here till April.
That's nice. That must feel good.
Yes, and actually, when I walked into the house yesterday, it's living in other people's houses is a funny old thing, because there are pluses and minuses. And I realised that when I came for my interview here on September the 30th, they took me out to lunch in the garden. So we spent all day in the garden. They didn't really look at the house very much. I mean, I didn't know where anything was, like the thermostat or the central heating, or I don't think I paid any attention, quite frankly. So when I arrived yesterday, I knew where I was going to work, and I'm sitting there now. It's nice. It's a sort of dining room on the way to the kitchen. But when I went into the kitchen, of which I have no memory from September the 30th, I went, oh, it's really nice in here. And actually, to be pleasantly surprised is a nice thing, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes. So I went and had a look at I haven't looked at our download numbers recently, but I went and had a look at our chart position, because I've swapped us over on our secondary category to health, self-help.
Okay.
Which didn't exist when we launched the podcast.
No.
And there's quite a lot of people.
And we have changed category before, haven't we? Went into journaling and something or other, diaries or something. Personal journals, was it? Something like that.
I remember that. That must be the 3rd category. And we've gone in. I was hoping we choose straight into new and noteworthy on that one, but we've actually gone into what's hot, number 74.
Okay.
And our normal theme, management and marketing, we're at number 73. So no big change there. But I think now we hit 200 episodes, we'd actually be edging up a bit, wouldn't you?
Well, if only we knew what the criteria were, so that you could, I forget what the word is, game it.
Yeah, well, there's quite a lot of chat in Superfast Business Forum at the moment about podcasts, how one guy's just managed to 800% his podcast downloads, and I'm going to go and have a look, because he sets it out step by step what he did. So
Okay, that's interesting.
I will have a look and see if I can do that.
Okay.
What about yourself? Oh no, we've done you already, haven't we?
Yes. So is it just that you wanted to tell us in here, or anything else before we go on?
Well, I had written down about NaNoWriMo and my numbers of amount.
Oh yes, well, I mean, you've told us, but you've done very well. You're ahead of the game. I'm slightly annoyed about that, Nicola. I like to be ahead of the game. Now I can't be ahead of the game because you're ahead of the game.
Well, if I hadn't had such flashes of creativity this week, I would be, it's quite a lot.
Well, I am going to take credit for that, because your 3,000 words on Saturday were immediately after we made last week's podcast, weren't they? So must have fired you up.
Yeah, well, I had 500 words to write for our podcast, so I just kept going, really. But it's interesting just talking about it, because I feel great resistance to writing the bits of the book that I think are going to be hard, i.e. when Brienne Fos goes back in time, and I had a real breakthrough about how she was going to harness the power of her own subconscious to move back in time. I resist writing my first love scene. I resisted writing my first fight scene. I haven't written the fight scene yet, but I've had her in training, so at least I know she's going to be half competent. But actually, when it comes to writing those bits that you're resisting writing, they actually, once you make yourself do it, they flow quite freely. So.
Well, isn't that a universal truth? I used to make my own clothes, and I used to think, oh, such a drag. I can't bear the thought I've got to get the sewing machine out and unbox it and thread it and sit at it all weekend. And when you started, it's the same as Mark Forster's Just Get the File Out. I think that applies to everything, almost everything.
Nothing
except going to the gym. That's the only thing. That never gets any better.
No, that is always worse than you think.
It is. It's grim. But it's nice when it stops. Whereas actually, when you do anything creative, I think the starting is the hard bit and the procrastination. But once you find flow, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. The thing I used to find with the gym was I actually didn't mind the exercising. What I hated was the getting dressed afterwards.
I'm reverse. I didn't mind walking, and I will get a treadmill when I eventually settle. But my favourite bit was the shower when all the pain was over.
Well, I just could never get dressed because I could never stop sweating for long enough.
Well, now going back to the flow thing, that's exactly the point of NaNoWriMo, of course, because if you start writing 1,600 words every day for 30 days, you get into flow.
Well, we'll see, won't we? Because I'll still have, I won't be finished because traditional sci-fi books are about 100,000 words plus. So I've got
about 99,000 too many for me.
I've got 15,000 words written already, and plus my 4,600. And
it's a trilogy, isn't it? This is just the first book.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Oh my God! So you can write 300,000 words altogether.
Yes, but 50,000 in November plus 15 already written. That's still only 65,000. So I'll still have another.
Yeah.
However,
you might as well do whatever. Keep going in December.
Yes.
You might as well make every month NaNoWriMo until you've finished.
Yes, and I'm not going to work for 2 weeks over Christmas when I go home, but I am going to hopefully finish this off. So who or what's impressed this week?
Anita the hairdresser and Holistic Helen. It would be madness for me to drive over 100 miles to visit either or both of them, even if I overnighted in a hotel. But what's really important to me, I've realised, is not the place I live, but the support systems I create wherever I am. What impressed me about both of them was their degree of care, seeing each client as an individual, not just more work to be got through before they can go home and draw their pay. They'll both be much missed. Now, you'll remember that my long-term beautician and friend Sue is in London, so I'll be able to go back to her for beauty. But I wonder what the future holds re-hair, especially now I am metallic silver.
I don't know. Where are you now, roughly?
I'm in the burbs, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, there might be someone like nice local.
Well, let's assume, because I didn't dare hope for that in Wincanton, but I found it, so you never know, do you?
Exactly. So this week we interviewed a writer called Peter Flannery, and we found him. We were talking about fantasy writing because we hadn't covered that yet. And Steph went on and she Googled top 10 fantasy writers on Amazon, and she found several. And she wrote to Peter Flannery, and he very kindly came back to us. We're getting to the stage now where authors have heard of us.
Oh, good.
Contact them, which is really nice. And he was very chatty, and we, getting a word in was brilliant, which is great when you're interviewing someone because it means you just have to guide them a little bit. And he wrote a book called The First and Only, which I'm reading at the moment. And then he went on to write Battle Mage, which is a real full-on fantasy thriller. And he is self-published, and he's sold over 40,000 books.
No, that's what puts the lie to what put you off writing at the beginning when you told that the average earnings was 12,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But now, because it just grew on me through the interview that he must be self-published, because the way he was talking about it, he didn't talk about an agent or a publisher at all. And I suddenly said to him, "Are you self-published?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "I really enjoy it." He said, I went to a writers group, and someone else in the writers group was self-published and done rather well. So they gave us lots of tips. But to get 40,000 sales of it.
I know. He's done well. He must like marketing as well.
He does. Yes. He loves that. Yes.
You have to.
He doesn't do anything really fancy.
No, and you don't have to, because the point is, if you're a writer, you do all your writing in the written word. It's easy.
Well, actually, one of the things he said that made the huge difference was getting professional cover art done for his books.
Yes.
And to go and have a look at the top 20 books in the fantasy genre, pick out the ones he liked, and he gave those to the illustrator and said, "I want something in this sort of vein," because apparently, your readers are skimming, and the cover art obviously jumps off the page at them, especially if it's the kind of thing they're expecting in the genre.
Well, so I have a question for you now. Have you ever bought a book by its cover?
No, I always read the back.
No, neither have I. So you see, what's good about that is it means that what we think we know isn't right for everybody.
What do you mean?
We've never bought a book by its cover, and if somebody said to me, "Oh, you need to have decent cover art," and I go, "I don't know why I've never bought a book by a cover," we're forgetting that there are gazillions of people in the world who don't have the same operating systems as us.
I think it's more about the cover catches your eye, and then you read the back blurb.
Well, when you're in a bookshop, but even when I'm buying on Amazon, I don't buy a book by its cover. Well, of course I wouldn't. I'm non-visual. Of course I wouldn't. Of course, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is the advice we get has to be tempered with the fact that not everybody is like us.
Oh, totally. I remind myself of that every day.
Yeah.
You are not your ideal customer.
And was it you last week saying, was it Frank Kern you quoted? You said something like, those most dangerous words, everyone and always. What are they? What were they?
Always and everything.
Yes, there you go. So never assume, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So I'm thoroughly encouraged, and I'm even more thinking that I'm much more likely to go down the self-published route.
I'm pleased. I am, because you are good at marketing, and there's lots of different ways you're good at marketing. And I think it's absolutely the way. This Killing Eve that we all love. I've told you this before, but it's based on a self-published series of novellas by a man. So you could go all the way to a teleprog from self-publishing. Well,
the thing is, though, I don't know if I want to do my own marketing
okay.
I just feel that I'd rather be writing the next book.
Well, that's what all my clients say. I don't want to market. I don't want to do any marketing. I'm gagging to write my next book. Well, if you want to make money out of it, that's pointless.
Yes, absolutely.
You either pay for somebody to do it for you.
Yes. Well, I was thinking I'd talk to Kevin Long, the Kindle King.
No.
Because he works specifically with fiction authors, and he's had a pretty much 100% track record. So
great.
Yeah, so I might give it to him when it's getting close to the time, because he does the editing as well, which is really something.
and in theory as well, one could reinvest everything you make from book one to make each subsequent book progressively more marketable and more cheaply.
And also, the lady who lives out here and has written 5 books about living in Greece. She says every single book that she's published has made the first book sell more, the second book sell more.
Quite, because there's nothing we all love so much as a series and starting at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting stuff, interesting times, something different for me, that's for sure. Well, I think that's us done this week.
Marvellous. Yeah, see you next week.
Yes, all right. Bye.
Bye.
How do they do it? Not a care and suffering. Wanna step into their world.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitpodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.